college football playoff rooting interest. And we did this during the end of the regular season because there were a lot of games to keep an eye on that could affect Tennessee. But it's pretty simple now, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's twofold actually, because it's not just teams you want to see win, but it's not as simple as you think. Because yes, you want to see the higher seeded teams win, but if you're thinking about going all the way to the national title game, there's a couple teams you might want to root for just to see them knock out some other teams in the next round. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. Explain.
So, okay. I'm first setting up a poll question. Outside of Tennessee, which CFP underdog are you rooting for most? So I'm putting in SMU, Indiana, and Clemson. So those are the three. I'm sorry?
Not Indiana.
Oh, yeah, because you just hate Indiana so much. Dave's hatred for Indiana is you know what, he's a Celtics fan, he's a Larry Bird fan, and he hates everybody from the state because they didn't put enough talent in, because Bobby Knight sent Larry Bird back to Indiana State. Is that why you hate Indiana, Dave?
No, but I'm not a big Bobby Knight fan. So what other games are we rooting for? You say just teams above them want to be viewed as?
Well, okay, so not necessarily, and I'm going to break down why. So SMU, Penn State, 11-6. Go ahead and root for SMU. The winner of that game is going to play Boise State in the next round. So that is the most you want. Go ahead and root for SMU to pull that upset. I think there's recruiting issue. There are actually recruiting factors with Penn State because, Dave, in this new era of college football, I don't think it's regional anymore. Just every blue blood's a recruiting rival, right? In college football now. And so
everybody with a wallet, as long as you got a wallet.
Yeah, exactly. And money in the wallet.
Yeah.
So root for SMU. Clemson and Texas, again, doesn't really matter. So if Tennessee were to get to the Final Four, they would play the winner between Arizona State and the Clemson-Texas winner. So that's a little more relevant to them. I think you're rooting for Clemson for multiple. See, this is where it's a little debatable because we talk about blue bloods, Dave. Clemson doesn't really belong, but I want to ask you, and this is where the debate comes in. Could it hurt Tennessee on a recruiting level if Clemson wins and proves that they're still relevant?
Yes.
Upsets tech. So you would. So are you rooting
for root against Clemson?
So you're rooting for Texas, even though they're the favorite?
Yes.
Okay. So for the sake of recruiting, I get it. Root for Clemson or root for Texas. But for the sake of just this playoff, I think if you're Tennessee, you want Texas out of the way, don't you? In terms of a threat to you. So which one are you taking? Eliminate the threat in this year's playoff or eliminate the threat in next year's recruiting?
I would probably talk recruiting since I think that has a longer impact. So I would, if I'm Tennessee, I would rather Texas win.
And there's no guarantee that you'll even get to play the winner of that game anyway. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. So you go ahead and root for Texas. All right. You've convinced me. Here's the hot take, guys. Indiana, Notre Dame. You just brought up not Indiana. Dave, I agree with you. I say root for Notre Dame. Are you ready for why?
Why?
The biggest threat by far to Tennessee in the college football playoff, if Tennessee were to – the biggest threat to anybody is Georgia. They're the best team in the playoff, right?
Right. Not substantially better than previous years, but noticeable.
Yeah, but still the best. Georgia, on any regular week, would Drax Notre Dame. However, it's looking like Carson Beck's not going to play in that quarterfinal game. So the winner of Indiana and Notre Dame is going to get to face Gunnar Stockton. At that point, you start to think, oh, which one has the better chance of beating Georgia? Because there's a real chance one of them could beat Georgia at that point, right?
Sure.
And at that point, you got to root for Notre Dame. Because let's be honest, Dave, gun to your head, who's more likely to beat Georgia, Indiana or Notre Dame?
Probably Notre Dame.
Right? So, am I crazy to say root for Notre Dame so they could potentially knock out Georgia for you in the next round?
No, I mean, I think you'd want the underdogs to win for the most part, with the exception of the one we just had. I don't know. Caleb, I'm just glad that when this is over, we don't have the conversation about, well, their strength of schedule is this much tougher and this much harder and this much more difficult. And I'm just glad we don't have to have those conversations anymore. Oh yeah. With the breaking it of a down. No, yeah, but that's the fun part. You brought this up. College football likes that. Half of college football's popularity is driving the debate over strength of schedule and, formulas, isn't it? Yes. I mean, that's exactly, they've been doing this for 100 years. If there was no controversy, the sport wouldn't sell as well.
I mean, that's a huge. It's kind of like in wrestling, when they have the when they do the screwy finishes. Sometimes, you know what I mean. It's like that's half the entertainment value of wrestling is the screwy finishes, and college football seems to embrace that. So, just for the poll outside of Tennessee, which CFP underdog are you rooting for the most? SMU 34%, Indiana 41%, Clemson is 24%. Those are the leaders. That's the result so far. Based on what you and I are saying, Dave, though, it looks like we say Tennessee should root for 2 of the 3 favorites, Texas and Notre Dame.
Yep. I think you want Clemson to be right where they were, which was just outside looking in. Now they're in, looking around. You need to knock them out the door as fast as you can.
Is that the most important game to you between the 3, rooting for Texas over Clemson?
Well, I mean, unless
I'm talking the first round because Oregon and all of them have buys and everything like that.
Right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can get down with that.
Interesting. I mean, I would, and that's even with Texas being in the SEC. But I think you kind of convinced me. I think you kind of have a point with that. Who do you think? So let's do this. SMU, Penn State. We've already talked about in the past how Tennessee's the most likely underdog in this weekend's slate of games. But if you had to pick another underdog that's most likely to win, SMU at Penn State, Indiana at Notre Dame, or Clemson at Texas, who would you think has the best chance?
SMU, and I don't care what the numbers are.
Why? Because is it that level of little faith in Penn State?
Well, I mean, I'm not even going to look at the numbers. I can just tell you I don't like James Franklin and big game coaches or big games as a coach.
But you like Marcus Satterfield against Indiana.
I like anybody else, basically, other than James Franklin as a big game coach. I mean, what's the one big game he's ever won?
He beat Ohio State in 2016 off a fluky blocked field goal return for a touchdown, something like that. It was weird. So that was probably the biggest one that he won. Penn State won the Big Ten that year, but was left out of the college football playoff. Ohio State still went in. I thought it was I thought that was the accurate move because Ohio State was the better team.
Are you surprised at all? You mentioned that people were still showing up from the Michigan-Alabama bowl game. You said earlier you thought bowl games would do just fine, but why? I didn't.
No, I thought they would struggle. I was shocked by it. I'm beyond shocked. Like I said, I was wrong about how right I was, because I didn't think that. I thought that this new college football playoff, while I didn't like the sacrifices to the regular season that was coming, I thought the actual month, the 3 weeks that was taking place would be like the greatest 3 weeks of sports, the most exciting. Dave, I'm sorry, but I hate to be the bearer of the Grinch, but does it really feel like this is the first weekend of the 12-team college football playoff? Do you see the same excitement you even see from March Madness in basketball the first week?
But it's just the first week. I think you'll see that.
What? I don't know. It's weird. It just seems like I think people overlook something. You know what I think a lot of people overlook, Dave, is I think, and this is the honest truth with the playoff, I think they overlooked that you sandwich the first and the second round around Christmas and New Year's. People usually like a weekend to commit to themselves to focus on Christmas and the holidays and things like that.
It's very true.
And I think that this, if you're an Ohio State fan, or if you're any of the fans of the home teams, you got to choose between traveling to this home game or traveling to the bowl game the next week, but you're not going to do both because it's around the holidays.
No, I wonder too with fans how they've weighed it in their minds of Ohio State's a pretty special place. The Rose Bowl is really special. Ohio State though is drivable. It makes it a little less expensive, but tickets may be the same price. There are just a lot of families that made bowl trips in previous years that aren't going to be able to make 2 and 3 trips for playoffs.
Yeah, which is why the home crowds are not going to have the same home field advantage. I think a lot of people if you're an Ohio State fan, Columbus isn't special. You'd rather go to the Rose Bowl because you've already done Columbus. Now, you've probably already done the Rose Bowl too, but that's a different story. If you're a Tennessee fan, though, Columbus is special. You've never been. So it's my brother got tickets. He's thrilled. He's really excited to go to Columbus. And I would be too. It's there's something special about you as a person who has covered Tennessee. Wasn't there always something special about going to a place you haven't gone to before to cover them?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, definitely. I can remember being wowed at Auburn, how loud that stadium was when I didn't think it would be even close to the top of the list. I can remember going to Cal and seeing the Hippie game there. And yeah, it's when you talk about the setting that they have right now, and you've got cars coming in before the sun came up in Notre Dame to bring in their party supplies, that to me feels like college football playoff time. And I think this is going to be a thing, and it's going to be football Friday, and boom, there you go. I love the fact that they're playing one game on the Friday night before too. So I'm excited. Always
that was the
around.
smartest thing. That was the smartest thing they did.
Yep.
Was the Friday night game.